Did you know that the 70s produced some of the most incredible high-pitched singers in the world? From Robert Plant and Freddie Mercury to Barry Gibb and Minnie Riperton, who really hit those incredible high notes? And if you had to choose, who would you say was the most impressive high-pitched singer? Welcome to 10 singers from the 70s who could hit impossible high notes. 10. Barry Gibb, Bee Gees, the king of falsetto. When it comes to the 70s, it is hard to ignore the name Barry Gibb, the soul of the legendary band Bee Gees. If rock had sky-shattering screams, disco exploded with falsetto, a high-pitched falsetto that made the whole world sway on the dance floor. And Barry Gibb was the one who made falsetto a symbol of an era. Interestingly, the Bee Gees did not initially intend to follow the falsetto path. Before coming to disco, the group tended to follow pop ballads with lyrical songs. But when starting to work on the soundtrack for Saturday Night Fever, 1977, Barry unexpectedly experimented with putting falsetto in Stayin' Alive. The result? That hit not only turned the film into a cultural phenomenon, but also nailed Barry's unique high-pitched voice into the memories of millions of people. A little-known fun fact, Barry Gibb once admitted that he started singing falsetto because he had no other choice. During a recording session, his younger brother Robin Gibb's voice didn't fit the high-pitched part. Barry tried falsetto to fill the gap, and the crew immediately realized they had found pure gold. From an improvisation, falsetto became an irreplaceable brand. On stage, Barry, with long hair, a bright smile, playing and humming falsetto, took the audience to another world. His voice was not only high, but also strangely smooth, both seductive and addictive. Many fans once said that as soon as Barry sang falsetto, they could immediately imagine the spinning disco lights and the dance floor glowing with neon lights. What's admirable is that Barry has maintained his form to this day. At the age of over 70, he can still belt out his signature falsetto notes, although not as sharp as in his heyday, but still makes the audience nostalgic for the immortal disco era. It is probably not an exaggeration to say that without Barry Gibb, falsetto would never have become the sound icon of the 70s. He turned a vocal technique into a weapon that brought the Bee Gees to legendary status.
9. Minnie Riperton, Queen of the Whistle Notes. On the list of high voices of the 70s, Minnie Riperton is the name that surprised the whole world, because she not only sang high, but also reached a range that few singers dared to try, the whistle register, the surreal high notes like a flute. Minnie's most famous song, Lovin' You, 1975, is the perfect proof. This song was written by her husband and her little daughter Maya, later the comedian Maya Rudolph of Saturday Night Live. When singing with the humming high notes, Minnie seemed to bring the whole world into a sweet dream. The highlight of the song, the soaring whistle register, became one of the immortal musical moments of the 70s. An interesting fun fact, in the recording of Lovin' You, you can hear birds chirping mixed with the vocals. But what's more surprising is that Minnie, practiced with natural sounds to control her whistle. She once shared that she often practiced singing high notes in the garden, listening to the birds respond and trying to harmonize with them. It was this difference that helped her voice to be both high and have an incredibly pure tone. What made Minnie Riperton special was not only her technique, but also her courage. In an era when most divas were still conquering the high range with their belts, mixed chest voice, Minnie reached a completely different level, where her voice became almost alien. Unfortunately, her glorious career was cut short by breast cancer. Minnie passed away in 1979 at the age of 31, leaving behind a lasting regret for the music world. However, her legacy continues to inspire. Later singers like Mariah Carey and Ariana Grande have acknowledged Minnie as a great inspiration, who paved the way for the use of whistle register in modern pop and R&B music. It can be said that Minnie Riperton is not only a singer, she is the opener of a new world of singing. And it is thanks to those unimaginable whistle notes that her name is forever associated with the 70s. 8. Brad Delp, Boston, the man who holds the high notes forever. If you have ever heard the song More Than a Feeling by the band Boston, you will understand why Brad Delp is praised as one of the most impressive high voices of the 70s. In just a few seconds, from a warm and gentle voice, Delp can soar to bright high notes, lasting so long that the whole stadium has to hold its breath. Boston emerged during the boom of arena rock, where performances in front of tens of thousands of spectators were a daily occurrence. And it was Brad Delp who turned his high voice into a weapon that made Boston's music different. In Peace of Mind, or Foreplay Long Time, he not only hit high notes, but also maintained incredible stability. Audiences have witnessed him many times extending a high note for more than 20 seconds without breaking his voice. A little-known fun fact, before he became famous, Delp worked in a furniture factory. He often sang while working to relieve stress, and it was thanks to that noisy environment that he accidentally honed his ability to scream high without losing his voice. When he joined Boston, that seemingly time-killing skill became the key to his legendary status. Unlike many other rock singers who love to scream, Brad Delp possesses a special sophistication. He can blend a soft falsetto with a strong chest voice, creating a sound that is both soaring and heavy. Critics once commented, "Delp's voice is like a laser light, sharp, straight, and hits the audience's mind." Despite his fame, Delp is a rather humble and private person. He once said, "I just want to sing because that's how I feel free." And it was that humility that made his voice all the more special, as if he wasn't trying to impress, but he was taking the world by storm. Today, every time the opening guitar of More Than a Feeling rings out and Delp's voice soars to the melody, people remember him as the man of the endless high notes, an indispensable part of 70s music. 7. Lou Gramm, Foreigner, the heart of arena rock.
A fortune and feelings, but someday you'll pay.
When mentioning Foreigner, people immediately think of the stadium-shattering hits Cold as Ice, Hot-Blooded, Jukebox Hero. But what makes this band the king of arena rock is Lou Gramm's unique voice, a voice that can be explosive, soaring, and full of emotion. Lou Gramm possesses a powerful tenor voice with an extremely strong belt ability, meaning he can sing high notes in his chest voice without breaking. In Jukebox Hero, when he screams, "He's a jukebox hero," the audience is drawn into the fire burning from his own larynx. This is not the gentle falsetto of Barry Gibb, nor the surreal whistle of Minnie Riperton, but the explosion of pure rock energy. Fun fact: Lou Gramm was heavily influenced by soul and gospel before he got into rock. As a result, in many of his songs, he incorporated soul's emotional vibrato into the intense highs of rock. The result was a unique hybrid sound, one that had the power of rock and the heartache of R&B. Another little-known fact, Lou Gramm battled a brain tumor in the late 90s. The disease severely affected his ability to control his voice.
However, after recovering, he returned to the stage and continued singing I Want to Know What Love Is with a sincerity that brought the audience to tears. Although his voice was no longer as high as before, the emotions he brought were even stronger. On stage, Lou Gramm didn't need many tricks. He just stood in front of the microphone, sang, and immediately filled the space with enormous energy. Critics once called him the singing volcano, a perfect image for the high notes of the 70s and 80s. Today, when listening to Foreigner's live versions, we can still clearly feel Lou Gramm was the heart, the fire that turned arena rock into a global phenomenon.
6. Klaus Meine, Scorpions, Germany's steel voice.
I would try to change things that can't.
While many of the high-pitched voices of the 70s came from the US or the UK, Germany also had a special warrior, Klaus Meine, the leader of Scorpions. If Freddie Mercury made listeners soar, Barry Gibb made the world dance, Klaus chose to pour into the audience's ears powerful high notes, resonating like red-hot steel. What made Klaus different was the combination of perfect technique and intense emotion. In Scorpions' first hard rock and heavy metal songs, such as In Trance, 1975, or Virgin Killer, 1976, his voice was sharp as a knife, soaring but not harsh. When the band entered the ballad phase, Klaus stunned the world with Still Loving You and Holiday, where his high notes sounded like a sorrowful prayer. Little-known fun fact: in the early 80s, Klaus Meine lost his voice completely due to a swelling on his vocal cords. Doctors said he might never sing again, but Klaus underwent multiple surgeries and months of therapy to restore his voice. The result? Not only could he sing again, but he was stronger than before. Strong enough to make his mark with Wind of Change, a song associated with the historic moment of German reunification. That perseverance made Klaus one of the few rock singers who could maintain his form for more than 5 decades. Even at the age of over 70, he could still hit the signature notes that gave Scorpions fans goosebumps. Fans often say, if Robert Plant is the voice that takes you into the mythical labyrinth, then Klaus Meine is the voice that awakens the warrior in your heart. His high notes are both cold and fiery, reflecting the steely spirit that is typical of Germany, but at the same time full of humanity and emotion. It is no exaggeration to say that Klaus Meine is one of the European musical icons who proved that high singing is not only about technique, but also about spiritual strength. 5. Geddy Lee of Rush.
We are the priests, not the temples, not series. Our great confusion,
Controversial super high voice. If this list needed a special character, it would definitely be Geddy Lee, the frontman and soul of the legendary progressive rock band Rush. His voice was a phenomenon, super high, sharp, and as bright as a siren. Those who loved him worshipped it as a god. Those who hated it frowned in annoyance. But there is one undeniable truth. Geddy Lee created one of the most unique voices of the 70s. On Rush's early albums, such as Fly By Night, 1975, or 2112, 1976, Geddy sang so high that listeners thought he was competing with Robert Plant in a high-note championship. Geddy's ability to sustain notes was also amazing. He could sing a long line while maintaining a bright tone, leaving listeners both breathless and excited. Fun fact: Geddy Lee didn't think his voice was unusual at first. He once said that when he was in school, his friends often teased him because his voice was as high as a girl's. Instead of being shy, Geddy decided to turn his weakness into a strength, practicing to master those unreasonable high notes. And it was this uniqueness that helped Rush stand out from other bands of the time. However, his voice was also deeply divisive.
Many fans called him a rock angel because he could go higher than Plant, while those who didn't like him said his voice sounded like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. But that division inadvertently contributed to the legend. Rush was not for everyone, but for those who were truly ready to step into a complex, bizarre, but fascinating musical world. What cannot be denied is that his voice was perfectly suited to Rush's progressive rock music, technical, challenging, and always reaching for new heights. It was this combination that made Rush one of the most respected bands in the music and art world, even if it wasn't always embraced by the mainstream. Today, although Geddy Lee has lowered his pitch to match his age, his old live recordings still prove that he was one of the most unique and irreplaceable high-pitched singers of the 70s.
4. Freddie Mercury, Queen, Voice of the Century.
She never kept the same address. In conversation, she spoke just like a baroness. Middleman from China with conjugation minor.
If there is one name that almost the entire world agrees on when mentioning the greatest voice in rock history, it is Freddie Mercury. With a rare voice spanning nearly 4 octaves, Freddie not only possesses an extraordinary wide range, but also has the ability to control emotions and transform his voice into any style he wants. What makes Freddie different is the diversity in the way he uses his voice. In songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, he can switch from gentle, sweet ballads like Angels to dramatic operas full of drama, then explode into hard rock with a thunderous roar. That flexibility makes each Queen song a complete musical, and Freddie, of course, is the irreplaceable main actor. A little-known fun fact, Freddie Mercury actually hated his teeth. He had 4 extra teeth at the back, causing his upper jaw to protrude slightly. Freddie was afraid that if he had his teeth straightened, it would affect the resonance cavity, losing the unique color of his voice. So he kept it that way for the rest of his life, and unintentionally created a brand, not only for his appearance, but also for perhaps his immortal voice. In addition to his technical ability, Freddie also had an unmatched stage power. His voice not only resonated, but also permeated the audience, causing tens of thousands of people at Wembley Stadium or Live Aid to sing along in a state of extreme excitement. A person who can command such a sea of people, in addition to talent, also needs charisma and a heart that is always burning with music. The amazing thing is that Freddie Mercury did not receive any professional vocal training. He sang instinctively, but reached a level that even scientists had to study. A group of scientists once published a study that Freddie's vocal cords vibrated faster than normal people, which helped him achieve special sound effects when singing long or growling. When it comes to the impressive high-pitched singing voice of the 70s, Freddie Mercury is not only a strong candidate, but is also considered the pinnacle, the standard to compare all other singers. It is not an exaggeration when many people call him the voice of the century.
3. Ann Wilson, Heart, the female version of Robert Plant. If we talk about female singers who can be compared to the rock kings of the 70s, the brightest name is definitely Ann Wilson of the band Heart. With a high-pitched, strong, but still emotional voice, Ann is often called the female version of Robert Plant by critics. And in fact, when listening to her singing hits like Barracuda or Crazy on You, many audiences mistook her for the voice of a male rocker. What is special about Ann is the combination of technique and emotion. She has the ability to reach the highest notes without being harsh. Instead, she's strong and powerful, giving listeners goosebumps. In ballads, Ann's voice is gentle and sweet, as if she is whispering a sad love story into the listener's ear. An interesting fun fact: Ann Wilson was extremely shy when she was a child. She suffered from a stutter which made communication a nightmare. But the miracle was that when she sang, the stutter disappeared completely. Her voice became free and smooth, and gradually singing became a way for Anne to overcome her own inferiority complex. It can be said that music saved her, transforming her from a shy girl into one of the most powerful frontwomen in rock history. In addition, Anne was also admired for her ability to stand firm in a male-dominated environment. The 70s were the era of big guys like Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, or Deep Purple, but Anne and Hart proved that women could completely dominate the rock stage and do it in an equally explosive way. Ann Wilson's career is also a clear testament to the power of an impressive high voice. Without any other weapons, just with a microphone, she was able to make the whole audience shake. Today, many still call Anne one of the greatest female rock voices of all time, and looking back at the 70s, it's impossible not to include her in a list of singers with a voice that was as high as the sky.
2. Steven Tyler, Aerosmith, the Demon of Screamin'. If Robert Plant is the legendary high voice icon in rock, then Aerosmith's Steven Tyler is the madman who knows how to turn screaming into art. People call him the Demon of Screamin', the Demon of Screams. And indeed, no singer in the 70s could take the audience from astonishment to excitement like him. Steven Tyler possesses a powerful tenor voice with a wide range of nearly 4 octaves. He not only sings high, but also knows how to compress the force in each note to create unmistakable explosions. Listening to Dream On, you will hear Tyler start with a gentle, emotional voice, but when the song reaches its climax, he unleashes explosive screams as if tearing the space apart. It is the kind of voice that not only touches the ears, but also penetrates straight into the listener's chest. An interesting fun fact is that Steven Tyler once intended to become a drummer. Before stepping on the microphone, he played drums in a few small bands. But because his voice was so different, his friends convinced Tyler to take the mic. And the rest is history. Aerosmith was born, becoming one of the biggest rock bands in America, and Tyler became one of the most iconic vocalists in the world. In addition to his technical ability, Steven Tyler also has an extremely attractive performance style. With a scarf tied to the microphone, messy hair, and rolling, kneeling, and jumping on stage, he turned every performance into a crazy party. Many audiences have recounted that just one live shout of "Dream On" from Tyler was enough to make a stadium of more than 50,000 people explode. Steven Tyler is also a living proof that rock is not just music, but also an attitude. He once was addicted, almost lost everything many times, but each time he came back, he proved that the fire in his voice never went out. In the 70s, in a sea of impressive high voices, Steven Tyler stood out as a monster. Not technically perfect, but wild, emotional, and inimitable. And that is what made him a living legend, one of the most beloved rock vocalists of all time.
1. Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin. The golden standard of rock's high voice. If we had to choose a singer who defined the concept of legendary high voice in the 70s, the first and only name that would come to mind would certainly be Robert Plant, the soul of Led Zeppelin. With his golden curly hair, his dashing looks, and his voice that could soar like a hurricane, Plant was an irreplaceable symbol of an entire rock era. What made Robert Plant immortal was the combination of innate technique and wild emotion. Listening to him sing Immigrant Song, the audience was drawn into the screams of "ah, ah, ah, ah."
a sound that was both surreal and had the energy of a Norse warrior, enough to bring to life an entire Viking mythological world. In Stairway to Heaven, Plant takes listeners on a magical journey where his voice gradually climbs from low, sweet notes to a climax that seems to tear the sky apart. A little-known fun fact, Robert Plant never tried to train his voice in a school. He sings purely by instinct and his love for blues, folk, and rock. When he was young, Plant often sang in small bars in England and was rejected by many record labels because his voice was too different and not suitable for the market. But it was that non-standard that made him unique. On stage, Robert Plant doesn't just sing, he lives every note. The stretching of his arms, the hair blowing in the wind, the eyes closed when soaring high, all make the audience feel mesmerized. Many fans describe the experience of listening to Plant sing live as like standing in front of a storm, both scared and excited to the point of breathlessness. Plant's voice not only influenced audiences, but also shaped a generation of singers who came after him. Steven Tyler, Axl Rose, and even Chris Cornell all admitted that they were heavily influenced by his high, emotional, and dramatic singing style. In the world of high voices in the 70s, Robert Plant was not just the top of the list, he was the gold standard for all generations to come. And to this day, more than half a century later, every time that legendary scream rings out, we still feel the freedom, wildness, and explosiveness of the golden age of rock and roll.